Hi everyone. So in this video, I'm going to be explaining what your assignment is for writing project number one. There's no quiz associated with this video, but it is important that you watch it because you need to understand what the assignment is. If you don't, you might end up getting a 1 on some of the pre-writing assignments on your outline or your rough draft simply because you didn't understand what you were actually supposed to be doing. And that wastes time. And again, as we mentioned for summer, we don't have a lot of time. So you don't want to waste time with that. So it's best to watch the video, make sure that you understand very specifically what I'm asking you to do so that you can do as well as you possibly can on the outline and the rough draft. So this language and identity project, as I say here, we have been discussing how there are different Englishes that are used in different contexts, as well as how people are often judged on how they use inappropriate versions of English in various contexts. For this writing project, I want you to reflect on your own experiences with various forms of English by discussing the ways in which your non-academic language experiences have either helped or hindered your life so far, and how you believe it will enrich or hinder your life in the future. One thing you might notice about this assignment is very similar to the mother tongue code switching short writing assignment that you were supposed to complete for today. That's not an accident. I kind of wanted you thinking about some of these ideas and wanted to give you kind of a short assignment that you can begin creating something related to this. Kind of get your mind working in the right direction. And so you can definitely pick up on those same ideas that you had in the short writing assignment. If you don't like those ideas, you don't have to use them. You're not stuck to them, but you definitely can use those if you want. Also, notice that I've got that word hindered in there. That means it causes some kind of a problem, right? That is, we can talk about how it helps. Something helps, we know what that means. Hindered is basically the opposite. So, continue on. I say, think about what Amy Tan writes in Mother Tongue. In that essay, she tells us about how her experiences with her mother's limited English not only made her have a limited view of her mother, but also limited her own ambitions by making her believe she did not have the language skills necessary to be a writer. However, by the end of the essay, she explains how her mother's language actually contributed to her success as a novelist. So it's interesting how in that version, she's going to actually be talking about both sides, how there's something positive about this and how there's something negative about this, right? And so she goes through both of those. And I say, you should do something similar for this writing project. Explain what versions of English you were or were not exposed to growing up, and how those Englishes have helped and or hindered you in life, either academically, socially, or professionally. So, how have those different versions of English somehow changed the way in which you move through the world? And again, think about those videos we watched on code switching because they've got some interesting stories in there. And again, think about what Tan says. Think about what I wrote in the sample that I gave you for the short writing assignment. That can give you some ideas of the kinds of things that you can be talking about. I mentioned that version that I wrote for the short writing assignment. I previously mentioned that I've basically spoken like an English professor my entire life, something that did not make me very popular when I was growing up. Many of the black kids in my school and neighborhood made fun of me for the way I spoke, which made me feel socially isolated. However, my version of English made my teachers believe that I was academically gifted, maybe even more academically gifted than I actually was. So, if I were to write this assignment, I would explore both how my language background helped me academically, but hindered my social development. You should do something similar. And so you can see if you look back at that short version that I had, I talked about the social side of this, how that was a problem. But if I were doing the longer version, I would talk about the other side, the academic side, and kind of balance those things out and come to some kind of conclusion about that. I say here this writing project needs to have a clear thesis. We discussed, and I say we discussed, but actually we're going to discuss in the next video when I talk about what a thesis is. So you'll need to watch that so that you understand specifically what I mean in terms of a thesis. That video will have a quiz embedded. We discussed how in Mother Tongue, Amy Tan's thesis is implied, meaning that she doesn't state her thesis directly, but we can figure out what it is. And so I'm going to talk about that in the thesis video. So make sure you watch that and you understand the difference between an implied thesis and what we call an explicit thesis. Because I say for this assignment, I want to make you to make your thesis explicit, meaning that you need to state it directly, probably in the first paragraph. So make sure to watch that. And after you watch that, come back and revisit this paragraph here where I'm talking about the thesis so you'll understand what I want you to do for the thesis. In both the rough draft and final draft, you must put your thesis in boldface type, which is what I'm doing here. This is in boldface type, so that I can tell what your thesis is. So I want you to indicate to me what your thesis is. I say in rough draft and final draft. Actually, in your outline, you'll definitely need to put that in there, and I'll explain what you'll need to do for that. But you must put it in bold so I can see what it is, make sure I know that there is a thesis, and then I can comment on it. Additionally, you must use at least 2 quotes from Tan's essay. These should either help us understand how your experiences excuse me, are either similar or different from Tan's experiences. For example, if I were completing this assignment, I might say something like, I can identify with the language Tan describes as filled with carefully wrought grammatical phrases, burdened it suddenly seemed to me with nominalized forms and past perfect tenses, conditional phrases, because that is, typo there, that is the kind of language I used even when I was very young, right? And so what I do is an extra quotation mark over here as well. What I do is I put that into, and in the video that you're going to have for tomorrow, I'm going to actually tomorrow. I'm going to be talking about how it is that we integrate the quotes in here, what I've done here, and so there'll be a whole video on that with a quiz embedded with that. I could also say something like Tan writes about how her mother's English almost had an effect on limiting Tan's possibilities in life as well, but my experience was very different. The fact that standard English was more prevalent in my home meant that many possibilities seemed open to me. So again, I'm using that quote to help explain my ideas here. I don't just throw that in and just say, oh, here's a quote, and then go on to something different. I weave it into what I'm talking about. And again, the video that we're going to have for tomorrow is going to talk more specifically about that. And I say this assignment must be at least 750 words long and in MLA format. I will talk about what MLA formatting is in those videos tomorrow. There'll be, actually that's the day after tomorrow, there will be an MLA formatting quiz. So if you're not familiar with MLA formatting, you will become familiar with MLA formatting. And so you watch the video, take the quiz to make sure you're aware of what all that is. So I just wanted to give you a sense of what this is. It's not a difficult assignment. Again, it's related to the short writing assignment that you've already had. We're just kind of expanding on that and using quotes. Watch the other videos coming up because that'll help give you some information about what a thesis is supposed to be, about how it is that we should integrate quotes and issues like that.